Alex Tardy here with Weather Echo. We've got some insights for you. A lot going on across the United States, Pacific and Atlantic, and in between. An atmospheric river, yes, that's going to pound the Pacific Northwest and British Columbia. Monsoon, well, we're tapping into a little bit as it's been quite dry across most of the West. Tropical cyclone, yeah, we got at least one. Erin, we're looking at in the Atlantic. Lightning, yeah, in the west and also in the East Coast, continue to be wet in the East Coast. And then another heat wave for middle to latter August. Yeah, that will build across the west. So let's take a look at some of these key features. This is water vapor. Water vapor is a gas, so we can't see this, but the satellite can see this. So a very useful tool. This is taken today, this morning. We can see the atmospheric river stretched across the northern Pacific and the Pacific Northwest, just approaching now. That's tropical moisture. It's tapped way into the western Pacific. Look at the Gulf. That area, very moist. We've had some torrential rains in areas such as Georgia. The monsoon, well, in Mexico, Baja, it's been suppressed, but look, it's starting to creep into Arizona. Now, Erin is sitting in the Atlantic, and there's lots of tropical moisture with that developing tropical cyclone. Though in California, we're dry, we're in between all this moisture as shown here. So this is potential moisture, potential areas of focused heavy rain. Okay, where has it been dry in August of 2025? Well, really most of the West stands out. Much drier than normal. That's percent of normal. Now, we've been dry in northern New England. We've been wet across the southeast, as I mentioned, and even in the northern plains and far northern Rockies near the Canadian border. Now, temperatures have been really warm in the southwest. We just had a record heat wave in early August in Arizona and Southern California. Temperatures were as high as 122 degrees. Now, it's been really cool in the mid-Atlantic and parts of the southeast with that heavy rain for all of August. And warm conditions in the southwest, warm in New England, and warmer than normal in parts of the Great Lakes as well. So a lot of variability in the weather across the country. The power of a map like this is it compares to normal or the 30-year average. If we look across the west alone, we'll focus on the west because we could see some lightning. And the fuels, the vegetation is very dry. Why is it dry? It's been much warmer than average and much drier than average. Lack of a monsoon. Over the past 60 days, it really stands out the Great Basin, Southern California, and Arizona. Now, we're going to erase some of this dryness and deficits in the Pacific Northwest with the atmospheric river, where it's been warm and dry there as well. Now, when you have thunderstorms, it's not about them being dry. They will produce rain even in the west. It's about the vegetation and fuels. So we get lightning strikes on this dry vegetation. We have some daily winds. It could spell a problem with wildfire activity. And it's been busy across the west. Now, even in California, we've seen really large fires. If you look at the San Luis Obispo area, the Gifford fire, that area has been much cooler than normal, even though it's been much drier than normal. Okay, what's the weather pattern? Well, for mid-August here, we're looking at monsoon sneaking in to the southwest. We're looking at dry in California, an unusually cold Pacific trough tapping into that atmospheric river, steering it right into Seattle in the Pacific Northwest. That system, even though the atmospheric river is only around for a couple days, the bulk of it, that system is slow to leave. Now, what else is going on? Well, we have heat in the middle of the country and the southeast, very moist conditions in the southeast, out of the Gulf, and we have Erin. Now, Erin will interact with the jet stream, so potentially Erin will be steered off to the northeast after August 18th. So we'll see if that happens. That'll protect the East Coast. Let's talk about the atmospheric river. Really moist conditions. A moderate to strong as shown in red here. This is wind and moisture or water vapor. So it shows a focused area focused along the storm system or the jet stream. The moisture has been dragged across the entire Pacific from a really deep tropical source and being steered into the Pacific Northwest. Unusual levels of moisture for this time of year. How do we know that? We can ask the question, compared to normal or compared to climatology, how unusual it is. On the left-hand side, it shows that it is off the charts almost, that deep red. hitting Washington. The values are very high in the dark green, so they're anomalous. They depart from normal significantly, especially when you compare it to August values. Now let's talk about Tropical Cyclone Erin, and that's correct. I called it Tropical Cyclone. That includes tropical depression all the way to Category 5, so all levels when you say tropical cyclone. Tropical means it's warm core, warm nature. And so that system continues to develop as it slowly moves to the west. The general consensus is to have it steer east of the Caribbean islands, so east of Cuba, east of Florida, as it continues to strengthen. This is a model from Google, but it shows also traditional models like the United States Weather Service cone and the European model. Now I want to point to you not just Erin's development, potential development in the Western Gulf as shown here. That type of development can happen really quickly, so we'll have to watch that in the short term, something coming off of Mexico or the Yucatan Peninsula area and moving into the West Gulf and maybe reaching South Texas. Now, if we focus on Erin later out in the forecast, she's expected to turn the corner and go north and northeast. So we could dodge a bullet with this potential first significant and major hurricane of the season in the Atlantic. This is how the latest projections at least are standing out. We'll continue to watch this. Now, I talked about a heat wave. Another heat wave? Well, we had a record-breaking heat wave in the Southwest in early August. Yes, in Arizona and Southern California. Now we're looking at the potential for new heat developing in the Rockies, the Great Basin, after this current storm system weakens over the next week. So we're talking week 2, after August 20th. The red shaded is where we see not just warm, but unusually warm temperature potential. Now that could last to late August and even into September. In fact, there's a lot of indications that the Rockies and Central Plains and maybe in the Pacific Northwest could have warm conditions continuing all the way through September. We could be spared by a lot of this heat as you see the blue shaded over much of California. So even though California could be spared, initially we should get a heat wave as shown on the left-hand side after August 20th. And then that could weaken and just shift to be more focused over the Rockies and Central Plains as indicated here in late August and early September. What's causing this new heat wave that I mentioned after the 18th? Well, that new heat dome is going to be a result of the stubborn, persistent storm in the northern Pacific Ocean that's stalled out across the Pacific Northwest. That's the same storm that brings the atmospheric river. It doesn't go anywhere. It just stalls and warms out. So nothing's pushing it along. Now, what's going to affect Erin is that storm system, strong storm system in the Hudson Bay, eastern Canada, that's going to generally steer west to east and push Erin out to sea, hopefully. If those two interact, that'll effectively push Erin out to sea. The new heat dome is shown forming over the Great Basin and the Four Corners region, and that could persist for a while through the end of August, even though it backs off from California as it initially pushes, as shown here, all the way to California. How warm, and how do we know it's a heat dome? Well, if we look at the air mass, so what happens is the sun comes out, it heats the ground, the air rises, but you get warm temperatures if you're unable to replace that air from a space with cooler conditions. So when the heat dome or the warm air mass is in place, like shown here, that's how you result in really warm and sometimes record temperatures. So it's a warm air mass we're looking at, an anomalously or unusual warm air mass developing during that period, again after August 18th and maybe continuing through the end of the month, especially in the Rockies and Great Basin area. So we're looking at the measurement of the air mass, not at the surface, but the heat dome. And that's essential for determining heat waves. That's how we get our hot temperatures. Okay, we hope you enjoyed this. Check out more information. We have a blog on tropical cyclone models. Yeah, there's dozens of models. It's going to be very confusing. So check us out on TikTok. You can always see other videos on YouTube and even YouTube Shorts. We're on X, sometimes on Threads, and we have a blog that we continuously update on weatherecho.com. All right, everyone, stay cool, stay safe, and thanks for joining Weather Echo.